Hello, welcome back. I wanted to talk about one of the topics I mentioned briefly this morning, and I uploaded the previous video. In the previous video, I wanted to talk about breaking the ice and what I tried to do, which was breaking through a social class barrier, and also dovetails, or I cleverly made it dovetail to with something my therapist had said today. I had a therapy session today, and I talked a little bit about the social class barrier that I encountered in high school. Well, I'd encountered a lot of my years in school, but there was something monumental that I thought I was successful in, and I guess I sort of was successful in. Kind of, it was confusing in my senior year. I want to talk about what the therapist said. He said, first of all, in reply to my comment that I am frustrated, I feel stuck in my job. I'm not married, don't have a girlfriend, I don't have a significant other, and he said, "What did you want to do, or what do you want in your life?" So many words, it's not exactly how he put it. And I said, I knew exactly what I wanted. I'd want to be doing what Steven Spielberg is doing, or George Lucas, that kind of position in life. I want a Jewish wife. I want a nice family, and so forth. And that's where it dovetails into the social class barrier. I grew up with a mom that was very loving, very kind, so forth. For whatever reason, she didn't. I noticed the this she is only up to down to 86% power. I didn't realize that. Sorry about that. This laptop. That should be enough battery power to go through this video if I don't keep talking and talking about it. My mom and I lived in Canada for a year when I was in first grade in Winnipeg, and then moved here and lived in an apartment building, an adequate sized apartment building, and I had to keep we had to keep things quiet, so forth. We had to be conscientious of the neighbors, and then we moved to a home that was either constructed as an apartment, a two-family apartment building, or was converted into one. Anyway, we had the top floor, and we had to be concerned about the neighbors below us. We had to be concerned not to make too much noise and so forth. And my mom can be extra conscientious. But my mom didn't have a car for whatever reason. She had a car when I was like 1.5, and she let me drive it in the driveway. So she says, and at home, I didn't feel poor. She would go to garage sales. She would bring home nice toys, and usually when I wanted a toy, she would buy it, and it wasn't out of the ordinary, especially early on, I guess, that she would ask. I'm thinking 1984. She would ask, "Well, if you really want this, are you willing to go on peanut butter sandwiches for a while?" Yes, I am, because I really want this. And I was honest. And I'm not one of those kids that just forgot about it conveniently. I abided by it, and I think that strengthened that sense of will in me, as people might call it, sense of character or whatever. I knew, um, let me rephrase that. I was careful and decisive and certain about the things that I wanted because we couldn't afford a lot. But my mom, I'm sure, made it so that I got as much as I felt comfortable with and I was happy with. So I had action figures, I had play sets, a lot of which and board games, a lot of which came from garage sales. I got clothing, and I'm glad I remembered to mention the clothing aspect because when we moved again to the living above neighbors below in this house, call it a house, I changed schools and hi, welcome back. I'm going to move this over so I'm not looking at myself like a mirror. What happened was the in that brief moment the went to screensaver and I clicked on the screensaver to activate the screen again and it accidentally had me shut off the anyway to end the video. So I'm back again about clothing and so forth. So I started a new school at near the beginning of fourth grade, just after fourth grade began, and I I'm going way way back, but I remembered having different clothes. I tend to wear more formal clothes anyway, but um, at some point along the way, I realized that I didn't seem to have as much as the other kids' families did. And I realized, I guess perhaps it was the housing. I realized that I wasn't living in a, we weren't, my mom and I weren't living in a house by ourselves for a while. And it seemed they all did. And it seemed it seemed that they had both parents. It just, my impression was that they had two parents and a nice home and so forth. And it's like cracks slowly creeping in to a piece of glass or something until the entire thing shatters. Well, these were the first few cracks indicating something's different. Um, and I also mentally was, I think, perhaps a bit more mature or um, interested in other things. I was reading adult books and I was absorbed in my interests. And as we entered into middle school, of course, my mom and I moved into a home of our own. And still, the sense that um, I had other interests besides gossip and competition and fashion and whatever. I just felt more mature and I felt a little bit more ostracized from the other kids, so forth. This leading up, I want to talk about breaking the social class barrier. So, and it's also beneficial because I had just finished. I think I finished, unless there's a little bit more that I discover I need to put in there. Finished an essay on my experience as a Star Trek fan, just my exploration, becoming and being a Star Trek fan. So hopefully that will be up on Amazon with the other stuff that I have there for sale. I mean, as books and tech stuff to texts to buy. Yeah, plug, hint, hint. Um, anyway, I had planned on middle school being the time when I would get a good haircut and I would start dating. And I remember sometimes, I remember one girl in chorus. Well, actually, not necessarily that one girl. I remembered two girls that asked me. I don't remember in what order this all happened, but I remembered. All right, I remembered two girls in chorus behind me that asked me if I would go out with someone, and the whole idea of dating and school didn't go together in my mind. I mean, I was a, no pun really intended, but I was a virgin when it came to talking about dating and so forth. So it turns out I was right. I remember it was near the time of the release of Batman. That would have been the second semester of seventh grade, and they asked if I would take her. Like, I never met her. I never met her. I just talked to them about her. Um, Seventh grade, um, to see Batman together, and I said yeah. And then just before that day, like in the morning, I think they told me, well, it was just a joke. It was just we were just essentially pulling your leg, and I could sort of see right through it. And I remember in study hall there was a girl some desks behind me and to the right. Like I was sitting in the front row, and then some desks behind me and to the right. Um, I somehow was passed a note saying, "Would you go out with me?" And I said, "I guess." I wrote, "Okay," but in my mind, I was thinking, "What? Oh, how do I do this?" And so I guess I no, I didn't act on it at all. And then there were a few other times when I think girls were just playing mental games with me. I guess you can see the here. Let me turn the TV over so you don't see that. Sorry about that. Um, so so amidst that and in gym class, boy, that was sort of torture. It certainly felt like torture to me. I didn't want to be in gym class because I wanted to. If I was going to be in gym class, I wanted to learn the rules of whatever game we were doing, like basketball or floor hockey or whatever. I was rather good. I enjoyed floor hockey because I could be the goalie, and I don't. I was very good at preventing any goal shots from the opposite team. But anyway, I wanted to learn the rules because I didn't follow sports, and they never really taught you the rules. They would just divide up into teams, and then, for my impression of it at the time was just a bunch of monkeys jumping up and or chimpanzees jumping up and down and just acting out their aggressions. And I didn't want to be a part of that. I always felt uncomfortable, and also in Temple, Sunday school. That was about the same time when I began seventh grade, essentially, beginning of during that summer and then into seventh grade Sunday school for seventh and eighth grade. I was entering. I just learned that I was Jewish. I'm Jewish, and it seemed that these other kids knew each other, and they accepted me more than. Um, that's not part of the Jewish aspect I wanted to cover. Actually, what I really wanted to cover was that this temple that I went to was in a wealthier neighborhood, and so my mom and I had to take a bus all the way over there. Actually, I think two buses all the way over there and two buses all the way back. And the other kids, I imagine, never had to take buses. Their family just drove them there, and already that's another crack in the sense that another crack in the impression that I'm on par with these other kids. So, um, they in school they would also gossip. I knew that they were gossiping, and I saw right through that, and I didn't see any point in that. And there was television. I think I learned a lot. I think I matured quite a bit just from the sake of watching television. I think I had a propensity for being mature anyway, if propensity is the right word. but I think television encouraged it, and it's a false statement, a false belief to say that television rots your brain. I think it very much encourages your brain if you're watching good quality stuff like Star Trek. I was watching Star Trek. I was watching Charles in Charge, Webster, Leave It to Beaver, Twilight Zone. Later on in high school, I was watching Get Smart and so forth. So I was watching thought-provoking television, philosophical television. So I was into that, and my life didn't consist of gossiping and small-mindedness. So I saw through that. So all right, so in senior year, I figured we weren't going to see each other. I mean, the class would be split up after this. So I did something in order to break the ice. At the time, I saw it as a nice gesture because I had been listening to uh, something on talk radio. That's another thing. Sometime through high school, I started listening to talk radio and I enjoyed that. And that's on par in some sense with reading books, thoughtful, thought provoking ideas. And the talk shows weren't like they are now, where it's, I guess, usually right wing propaganda with one host just blabbing to the audience. No, the stuff I would listen to would typically be a host. It was like Donahue and Sally Jesse Raphael had been on television. In fact, that's their roots were in radio. There would be a host who would have on for an hour, who would have on a guest, and would interview for about half an hour, interview the guest, and then callers would call in and ask the guest questions. And the guests would be like authors who've written about books or so forth about um, environmental issues or the upcoming election campaign or uh, languages or, well, ancient history might have been too highbrow or too out of left field. But I guess the stuff that Donahue tended to have on his TV show early on, and Donahue tended to be more political, and uh, out of the different talk shows, there are only a few talk shows uh, on TV, but I tended toward Donahue um, because his topics were like mainstream talk radio. So I was geared towards that. Where was I going with that? Sometime in high school. So, oh yeah, senior year. So there was I'll mention his name. It doesn't matter. Jim Bohannon, the Jim Bohannon Show. To give you a sense of some of the talk shows I listened to, I remember Jim Bohannon, Larry King, like Larry King Live. If anybody's ever seen Larry King Live on CNN, that was a typical radio show. Larry King Show and Dr. Dean Adele and the Dolans who talked about financial advice and Bruce Williams who gave business advice. Boy, I wish they were on now. None of this right wing stuff for 24 hours straight. I wish we could go back to giving actual advice like business advice or computer advice or health advice or something. Anyway, maybe that's what the internet is for. Anyway, I would listen to that and Gil Gross show, and it very late at night was Art Bell talking about ghosts and UFOs and Sasquatch and the upcoming apocalypse and Bermuda Triangle and wormholes and theoretical physics and warp drive and flying saucers and so forth, diseases and all sorts of things. So I was into that, all that. So, all right, Jim Bohannon had on as a guest somebody who was an author. She was an author, and I have her book. I know where it is. And it inspired me to make a friendly gesture and um, there was about a month when I hoped that the friendly gesture was reciprocal. I mean, received well, positively, the other end. And um, after that month, I got some indication that it was, I guess. I was confused after that. Um, but in addition to that, uh, my Eagle Scout award, either that year, I think it was 93. Yeah. Uh, because 1992 was the blizzard, and then 93 was my Eagle Scout project, which is cleaning up a um, a garden, a mortuary garden, a garden to respect, I think, the dead. I'll leave it at that. And that was my Eagle Scout project right after the flood of '93. So it was more interesting, more unique than a simple blood drive. I mean, how many of those can we? I don't want to go there. We do need blood drives. Um, anyway, I thought this was different. I had just earned my Eagle Scout award, and I had gone on. I would be going on a radio um, show um, to be interviewed in tandem with the Eagle Scout thing, I think, and it was really nice. I had been listening, as I said, to talk radio, and there was a certain channel. Oh, shuck, 470. Oh, I can't. It shows you how long it's been since I've listened to. I think it was something like 470, 490. 620, WSYR. Right, I'm lucky I remember WSYR, whatever the numbers are. So I was interviewed on, I think, the Fat Man. I think Ted and Amy. I remember. I think were there. But anyway, I remember the Fat Man was there, and it was nice. And I got to after that, I got to see these other people in person whom I had just heard voices on the radio, and all these and in school, in high school, in that senior year, there was a contest. I remember there was a radio station there, and there was some sort of contest to see how many volunteer swimmers they can get, and I think we broke the record. It was really nice because swimming is. I felt nice to me personally because swimming was one of my favorite things to do, favorite sports. So I had all that nice, happy feeling of achievement, and that links with this idea of breaking out of my shell. At least in school, outside of school, I had some close friends, and I had my writing interests. But in school, I had become concerned. Now, it's interesting that I hadn't been concerned about this before. I'd been annoyed that they didn't know, but I'd become concerned, maybe because it seemed more realistic that this could actually happen to me, could actually happen, that they could know that I'm more than just a nerd or geek or just weirdo or whatever. That meant a lot to me. To For them, I hope that they would be able to do that at least, before we all graduated. And so that's why this gesture that I made was one step, or one, like, if I could change one person, um, that would mean a lot to me. So um, anyway, the topic is about breaking the social class barrier. So um, it had mixed results, I guess. I'm still confused over it. and that's why I'm going to the therapist to understand it. And um, I remember the therapist kept asking me, well, what? Well, I guess I shouldn't go in that direction. He kept asking, well, what makes you feel stuck in life now? Because um, it seems so nice then. And it's not like I've been for 30 years. It's not like I've been like totally stuck in the past. It feels like I've been walking, like treading, going on a treadmill. I should point out the achievements I have made. I mean, I have gotten a car by myself, the past few years, and I've been able to sustain myself financially, at least having a roof over my head. And I survived my mom dying and having to move out quickly. And I think I have a good head on my shoulders. It's just that um, sadness about not having not having had people know who I really am beneath. Um, Let me talk about like being made fun of um, and ostracizing, feeling ostracized. Um, I don't remember how much I was made fun of because I've naturally blocked it out or not dwelt on it. But it was to the point where I knew that they didn't know very much about me. And I've since read comments like thanks to Facebook that they thought higher of me than I believed that they did, or it seemed that they did. And I've got to say, even though this seems like it's thrown in from left field, um, I mentioned that imagery of the green lawn and the lawnmower. Um, I have since moved from when I was living there. I have since moved somewhere else, and we don't have pretty lawns like that with a nice neighborhood. I mean, it's not. I'm not living like in downtown ghetto or something, but um, I'm not living where I used to be in a nice village, um, and I miss that. Oh, yeah, I do miss it. I don't dwell on that, but very recently, I hadn't really thought about it until earlier today. Um, what that green lawnmower and the smell, I mean the green grass and the lawnmower and the smell of the cut grass reminds me of is what people have called like the white picket fence, or yeah, white picket fence and the pink house and the dog and newspaper and so forth, like Leave It to Beaver. And that's what I imagined senior year of school to be like. And things were stable. And that was before everybody moved away and moved off to college. And um, that's when it's another point when um, it seemed like people would judge me because or this whole thing really sort of began when I brought up the topic of people being busy or active, and I feel like I'm not as active, even though I want to be, and feeling stuck in life, um, and other kids being more active. I mean, when I was in high school, I thought I was pretty active. Um, I was a Boy Scout, and I went to Sunday school, and I played with kids, and I watched TV, and I wrote a lot of scripts, and I tried to I would send them in to odd. I guess it's maybe the wrong way of doing it now. Maybe my skill wasn't there. I don't know, but I was just in the wrong city. But and I've written this in my memoirs. I enjoyed Get Smart, which was a 1960s show, but I enjoyed it enough to write at least one script. It was called "You're Dead in 5432." Um, Look it up. Get Smart. It's a parody, a comedic parody of Cold War. It's something like James Bond, or Mission Impossible, or I Spy, which are also 1960s shows. So if you don't know about Get Smart, you probably don't know about those shows either. But I I enjoyed Night Court. I wrote one about a Night Court script, and I wrote a Star Trek: The Next Generation script. I forget the title at the moment, but it was about resisting the temptation of paradise. I know it's not the most original idea, but like to a 17-year-old, that's nice. A 16-year-old, however old I was, um, and so I would send these to the production companies themselves, with my mom signing off as an agent, and that's not the best way of doing it because, from what I've heard, they have, first of all, they have in-house writers. So if you send them something, they're, first of all, in a prejudiced mind against taking outside material, and who is this guy off the street that's trying to do our job, so forth. I had read a book by David Gerald. I was using that as a pretty good guide. It's called The Trouble with Tribbles, and it was a pretty good guide because in it he explained chapter by chapter how he got his idea as a new Star Trek fan in to the point of it being produced in the second season. Of course, he lived in Los Angeles, and I lived way out in the other side of the country, and I felt like it was a huge uphill battle, but I was young enough as a child to be naive enough to just keep trying and keep trying. And I remember even in college, I wrote a two-part script for Spin City, the TV show Spin City, and I think it's pretty good. It was a parody of Watergate, and I would write these, and I enjoyed television. Television was my passion, and it's part of my identity. And I felt like I've had to be an imposter since then. I've had to take other jobs, and none of them seem really as fulfilling as if I had a job in my own career field, a career field that I earned a degree from a college bachelor's degree from. And I would see these people online, like on Facebook, and it would indicate like what they're doing with their lives, and I would see a lot of them living in bigger cities or in different cities, and it would really hurt me. And it was a continuation of that feeling in high school, only it's just at a larger scale. That they have families, I don't. They have children, I don't. They have nice photographs of them smiling. I don't really have much to show for it. I just have what's in here, and the small things I've contributed. Small achievements I've made, and it's as if I were in high school and I were meeting them again. I mean, the high school reunion should be coming up. I don't know if anything's planned for next year, but 30th anniversary or 30th year reunion. I just imagine them looking askance at me and just judging me, and not seeing. See, this is why I wrote that's what I think what inspired or partly inspired the Madonna movie project I had, them looking askance at me and not seeing, oh, this person understands Kabbalah, this person has studied the Bible, this person has studied physics, this person is really interested and really very knowledgeable ever since he was a kid. I mean, ever since he was, I think in 7th grade, really 6th grade, has been writing stories and getting more professional and looking sharper and learning better how to developing his talents, learning how to write better. And somebody who has an innate talent for writing to begin with. Some people have read what I've written and were amazed and gave some nice compliments, and they wouldn't see that. They would just see, it's like in high school all over again. They would just see, oh, this guy drove to this restaurant or wherever we have the reunion, and look, he's not married, he doesn't have a family. Oh, ha ha, give nice platitudes and walk away, just like in high school, just like all those other times. Like so immediately that class barrier would just pop back up again, where they would be this clique, and all the popular now grown-ups would just chat amongst themselves, and I'd feel out of place, and why am I even here, and so forth. So even on YouTube, I'm imagining, does anybody who's watching this know me? I mean, anybody who knows me personally, are they watching this YouTube? I mean, I can't see. The stats give like 1 or 2, maybe 5 views of a video I put up, but I can't tell. I can only see, it says I have something like 33 subscribers. Forgive me, please, for mentioning this. I'm not complaining, just pointing out something. 33, something like that, subscribers, and I could only see the list of 12. So the other ones are hidden. I can't tell who's been watching my videos. I'm glad at least one person has. I mean, I typically see at least there's 1 view in my videos, sometimes 5. So it's like that. I mean, it's as if they see me. I don't know what they're looking at, whether they appreciate what I'm saying or what. But this clique of people talking amongst themselves, and like I'd be a nuisance or annoying if I hung around them. So why bother? So I suppose that explains my topic of social class barriers and breaking them, or trying to break them, pretty well. I don't have anything else really to say, other than, if you've seen my prior video before this that I recorded this morning and uploaded, I was talking about social class barriers, and I was talking about making snap judgments. There was this thing on Facebook this morning where I'm following this page, Facebook page, and where somebody showcases some talent that's really nice, and so I, being knowledgeable in the Bible, I noticed a very beautiful comment I could make from the first 2 chapters of Genesis, and so I mention it pretty clearly, pretty clear language, and the talent has a possible stigma. It has a stigma to it, and religious nutcases can react negatively, to the stigma aspect of this talent. So, and it's a talent that I want to improve on myself. Um, so, I mentioned something from the Bible, from Genesis chapters 1 and 2, two different examples I thought was very beautiful. And so one of them said, replied, "Oh, what a reactionary!" See, there's a in religious thing, presuming that I'm a religious guy who's speaking out against speaking out against this guy's talent. No, no, it's quite the opposite. So fortunately, I posted no, and I explained, and then fortunately, the person, not the person who has the talent, but the person who made the comment, the reply comment in Facebook, uh, said, "Oh, sorry, I thought you were da 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 da." That was nice, but a few times in my life, people have made snap decisions, snap judgments, and biased and jumped to conclusions about me. I don't want to go into detail about that because I'd get myself into further, I don't want to, it's a quagmire. It's opening up a can of worms, it's the best expression for it. But I wish that in general, and I've talked to a longtime friend of mine, he's retired now, but he and I have mentioned this propensity, this habit of people to presume what they're thinking in their head, like they're presuming something about somebody else's motives, or just something about somebody else, and then they just assume that about the person, and they won't even listen to what the person actually says. And I'm very much the opposite. I listen very closely. I'm very attuned. Like my ears are open, and I think more than the average person. That's my point, basically. It's more than the average person. I listen to what the other person is saying, and I usually even remember the exact wording the other person says. I mean, it just occurred to me now, really, that people have said I have a very good memory, unusually sharp memory, and I can remember things way back pretty accurately. I remember well, not necessarily dates exactly, but I remember people, I remember events, I remember activities, and I remember I'm very accurate about, well, just in general now. I mean, more recently, I'm more accurate about dates, names, places, and so forth, and what people actually said, because I pay attention to what they actually say, and I can see I put things in gray boxes. Maybe it comes from reading books about UFOs, but when I read about, for example, UFOs, I remember it in two separate categories. I remember what was described, and I remember what I speculated on, and I put them in two separate categories. And I guess not everybody does that. So anyway, so to link that with the social class barrier thing, I wish that people would notice me for me and not jump to conclusions. So I guess I'll leave you with that until next time. Thanks. Hope you have a good day. Bye.